Who is a good influence? Is the topic of today's video. Being part of a society, you're going to communicate and interact with others. And as a result of this, they will have influence on you. How much will depend on how well you're able to resist the influence of others. Most people define this resistance as necessity and promote the concept of independent thinking and that people are true individuals with infinite free will in a society, and mob rule is a total and complete myth. None of this is true. Human beings, being social creatures, are heavily influenced by their environment, and it's essential for us to do so, as we cannot grow effectively in a social community without allowing others to influence us. Influence from others is both positive and negative, and we have to be able to control how it affects us. Why you can't be an independent thinker? Well, the mere fact that you're taught information from the moment you're born, and that it's a social component to communicate with others, makes it impossible to not be influenced by them. Even their intention is to not influence you, or their intention is to help you, or if information is presented in an attempt to be non-biased. It will be. It will influence you. It will decide who you become, and it will affect you in ways that are unavoidable and beyond your control. However, avoiding this influence altogether will rapidly inhibit your personal growth, as the only way to truly be an independent thinker is to isolate yourself from the social community. This slows your personal development, as you're unable to access as much resources, and as you challenge ideas, you resist the rate at which you're unable to absorb information from others. You limit your knowledge base to your own original thought, and deprive yourself of the intellectual wealth produced by others. This forces you to become a superior thinker, which is narcissistic, and believes that their thinking is the only way. This leads to antisocial behaviors. You lose your ability to sympathize with others, to be persuaded by others, both logically and illogically. This effect slows down your capacity to grow, prevents you from being advised effectively, and completely disrupts your ability to socialize effectively in society. You become authoritarian, and you lose the ability to accept the idea of being at a lower rank, and you force yourself to the highest possible rank in a narcissistic manner. In order to grow and change and develop who we are throughout our lives, we need things to influence us. But the problem is, good influencers will invoke positive change in us. And this is true not just on an individual level, but on a societal level. And bad influencers will result in negative change, leading to negative consequences. So who is a good influence? Is a great question. A question that needs to be answered. A question that needs to be answered quickly, effectively, efficiently, and on demand, and with as little effort as possible. As good influencers can invoke great positive change in our society, we can reap the benefits of excellent, inspiring leaders, and many inspiring men and women who have revolutionized our society. And modern day would not be possible without many great influencers. Unfortunately, there have also been many bad influencers in society who have reaped devastating negative consequences on society as a whole. So how do we decide? A question of necessity, a question of urgency, a question that needs to be able to be answered efficiently, with high quality, effectively, on demand, and has to be virtually infallible, with high accuracy and high importance. So how do we do this? Different people have developed different systems, and I will be discussing two significant systems that are of great importance. First of all, I'll discuss why people choose different types of systems. Main factors involve sensitivity to change, the level of critical thinking an individual has, and what psychiatrists refer to as locus of control, which essentially means how much an person is influenced by the behavior of others around them, also known as mob rule. However, the most dangerous system, a system that is almost intuitive, instinctual, we fall back on it over and over again, and our tendency to use it often increases with age and is greatly affected by our sensitivity to change, fear of change, fear of the unknown, our egos, and our desire to be not influenced by others, and the simple fact that we are used to things being a certain way and we refuse things to change. And this creates a phenomenon called the contradiction filter. The greatest anchor ever created by man. It holds people back. It devaluates information simply because it contradicts what is already known. A system that only allows the re-establishment of old ideas and rejects all new ideas. A system that defines progress as destruction. And as society needs to grow, the contradiction filter constantly restricts it. Unfortunately, to this day, because it's so instinctuary, so many people still use it. And so many institutions have built their entire functionality around the contradiction filter, where the only way they can support their culture or cause is by using the contradiction filter to filter out information through a process called the confirmation bias. The confirmation bias is a simple rejection of information simply because we don't already agree with it. Anytime we find information that already supports our belief, we will ignore any flaws and use that information to reinforce our beliefs, making it stronger and stronger, making us more resistant to change. As a result, we develop a high rigidness and closed-mindedness that prevents us from growing as human beings. And any time any information is brought forth to contradict their beliefs, they will do whatever it takes to find flaws in that research, to disregard it entirely, even if they know it is true. This is a tendency created by negative bias all the time. People do this many times, as we refuse to try to challenge our own ideas, and as a result, we only challenge new ideas. Despite this fact, the new ideas can often be contradictory to our own beliefs. The contradiction filter prevents progress and will hold society at a standstill as long as it exists. The moment we eliminate this, society becomes revolutionary. In fact, the elimination of this system and its eradication has single-handedly resulted in more progress than any other revolution in mankind. So how should you decide then? This is a difficult question to answer, and I'm going to answer this question by explaining a system that I call the cube of influence. 3 dimensions of factors to decide whether or not a person is a good influencer, a bad influencer, or somewhere in between. In society, there are 3 factors of the cube of influence: their method, their intention, and the accuracy of what they're saying. Some would say accuracy is binary. However, it can, in certain circumstances, be validated on the scale. The method of which they do so, whether they force it, manipulate persons to believe something, versus be persuasive, convincing, logical, intellectually driven. And their intention, whether it's to deceive or to actually benefit you, is a major influence on whether or not they are a good influence. These are all major factors. Now, in theory, a person who provides accurate information, regardless of their method or intention, is still providing positive influence. However, the way they do so will create weak grounds and roots in your beliefs, make you feel manipulated, forced, and often have detrimental psychiatric effects. Therefore, even if the person is telling the truth, if their method is manipulative, then therefore they are still a bad influence. And even if they somehow tell the truth with the intention to deceive, if their intention is to deceive, how can you trust them to be a positive influence consistently. Therefore, an ideal influence, the best influencer, a good influencer, is someone who provides high-quality ideas, does so persuasively, convincingly, and accepts challenges, and has the intention of assisting you. And the worst possible influencer is someone who forces incorrect ideas with the intention of deceiving you. And they know what they're saying is wrong, but they want you to believe it anyway for their own ideas. This is the cube of influence. Depending on where you are in this cube, various factors. People tend to be telling the truth and be manipulative. People tend to be telling a lie and be persuasive. And people can be accurate and inaccurate, regardless of what method they use. It is very difficult to conclude absolutely, as there's no correlation between method, intention, and accuracy in an absolute, predictable method, even though we like to believe that there are tendencies that deceivers will use manipulative tactics, and that people who are truth tellers will use persuasive tactics. But this isn't always true. As a result, accuracy is the ideal factor, and therefore, the best influencer in society is someone who's accurate, persuasive, with positive intentions. In final notes, we have to avoid various things that influence us in a negative manner. Fear the unknown, the need to know. And remember, it's better to not know something than to believe a lie. To have doubts and challenge new ideas, but not be afraid to have your ideas challenged and to change what you already believe. If you do not, you fall victim to an intellectual loop where you are unable to grow. And don't be afraid of new information. Allow people to try to convince you. But be careful of who you allow, as it's not whether you're influenced that affects your fate. It is by who and how they do it.